covering the stories that impact your life, your town, your state, and your future. This is the Means Report with your host, Brad Means.
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Means Report. We certainly appreciate you spending part of your day with us, where today we are going to focus on something that really is important to all of us, no matter where you live. It is our safety, and we're going to talk to two key law enforcement officers about ways that we can all work to keep Augusta safe. And yes, all of us, how you can help our law enforcement officers do their jobs. And of course, we'll wrap up the Means Report as we always do with ways that you can stay in touch and help us get more great guests. Like our guest today, we welcome the brand new Sheriff of Richmond County, Eugene Brantley, and Colonel Clarence Bo Johnson, also with the Richmond County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff, Colonel, thanks for what y'all do to keep us safe, and thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having us, Brad.
Well, I appreciate it. Sheriff Brantley, we talked during the campaign for sheriff, which seems like a million years ago. Actually, it was, I guess, the better part of 6 months or so ago.
Yes, sir.
What have you been doing since you won the election? Have you been able to do anything as it relates to being sheriff, or you just kind of been laying low?
Well, I've kind of been behind the scenes trying to assemble a great staff to help me navigate through the next 4 years of being the sheriff here in Richmond County and putting people in place to make sure we could bring us a safer Augusta.
And you've been hard at work doing that since day one. Colonel Johnson, just to give the people a feel for your duties, when I picture a colonel in law enforcement, I picture the sheriff, or sometimes police chief's right-hand man,
Sure.
right-hand person, somebody who is a leader in the organization. Is that how people should view you as a colonel, or what are your primary responsibilities?
Well, the sheriff has several right-hand people to be there to decide. It's not just me, but I am one of them, and I'm proud to serve alongside the sheriff. My responsibilities primarily are over the uniform division, and I kind of oversee the day-to-day operations for all the uniform division.
Sheriff, I know this is just a really basic question, but just to give us a feel, because sometimes I think people get different law enforcement agencies confused, not only in Augusta, Richmond County, but elsewhere. What are the primary duties or responsibilities of the sheriff's office?
So the primary duties of the sheriff, which is me, is to house inmates, the jail, and the court systems. But because we are one of, I think, 8 agencies that are full service here in the state of Georgia, we do the policing side as well. So, you know, we handle all the criminal aspects of things that happen here in the county of Richmond.
You know, when I walked into the newsroom before we taped this interview, Colonel, somebody said, "Who are your guests?" And I said, "Sheriff Brantley and Colonel Johnson." Somebody said, "Johnson, didn't he run against the sheriff?" And I said, "Yeah, he did, because you did. You were one of the challengers in the election for sheriff." Is it fair to say that now that you are serving right alongside Sheriff Brantley, that you support his mission, support everything he's doing, and want to be a good team member?
Oh, absolutely. I support everything Sheriff Brantley is for. I support his vision. His vision is my vision. It's also the vision of the rest of our executive command staff. We serve proudly beside him. Like myself, he saw there was a problem here within the Richmond County Sheriff's Office, and although we were running separately and in opposition at the time, we still had the same goal. And I've said many times over to people, and I'm sure my wife gets tired of hearing it, but Bo Johnson doesn't have to drive the bus as long as we get to where we're trying to go. And if the sheriff's driving the bus and I'm riding along, that's good. And we're going to make some things happen. So,
Sheriff, one of the things that you did make happen, I don't know if it was day one, but it was close to it, was make all those hires. It was pushing 100 new officers that you brought on board. How were you able to do that? Because we all know that the sheriff's office has been short-staffed, and then boom, we get all this new personnel in right away. How'd you do it?
Well, so over the 6 or 7 months since I won the election, that's been part of what I've been doing, just making contacts, reaching out, returning calls, and building the agency. So when we came in on day one, we would be able to onboard nearly 100 new officers. And to be exact, I think 74 of those that we onboarded are certified law enforcement officers, with many others not certified but working, as jailers in the jail. And I think 8 of them are just professional staff that's going to be working within the agency. So yes, we've had staffing issues at the jail and at the department, which has led to a lot of different incidents. And so just being able to, kind of mitigate some of that, I think is going to go a long way to making our city safe again.
Is it all about the paycheck? I know that, everybody wants to have a pleasant work environment and good conditions, but a lot of times officers would leave Richmond County and go to other agencies because of the pay. What have you been able to do about the pay, or what do you think you might be able to do about it to make officers want to come work for Richmond County?
Well, let me say this, like we've had officers leave Richmond County and come work with me at the marshal's office and take less money, because the culture was different. So it's not all about the pay. And when we were on board many of those deputies and talking to them, we had not even discussed anything about salaries. I mean, they were just, most of them wanting to come back and work home where they started at, and help build this agency back to being one of the better agencies in the state of Georgia, like it used to be, back in the early 90s, late 90s, early 2000s.
What's it like? How are the deputies feeling these days, Colonel? Is morale, I know it's only been a few weeks, but do you feel anything different?
Absolutely. The morale is through the roof. We've a lot of personnel we've spoke with had every intention of retiring prior to January 1st. Many of them thought they would just hang in there and see how things were going, and many of them, I don't think you can make them retire now. We've got people that came on that were dedicated to, as the sheriff says, to make our agency the premier agency once again in the state of Georgia, and with Sheriff Brantley at the helm and myself and the rest of the executive command staff, it's going to happen. We're going to turn this agency around. We're already started. The feedback's been phenomenal from the public, and we're just going to continue moving forward.
What's y'all's relationship like with other law enforcement agencies? Do all the sheriffs and police chiefs get along? And if a criminal crosses county lines, is there cooperation there? What's it like with y'all behind the scenes?
Well, and so with sheriffs, we are close knit. I think there's 159 counties in the state of Georgia. Sheriff Whittle, when I was at the Sheriff's Academy, he came and he spoke, and I've been up to his agency at least twice. Me and Sheriff Alfonso Williams have sat down and eaten and talked about things at least twice. We just recently worked together to apprehend a suspect that robbed a store, and they caught him in Burke County. So it's imperative that we have great working relationships with neighboring counties, because you'll see people may live in Burke County and come here and commit a crime or an act. Same thing with Aiken County or Columbia County. So those relationships are very important.
I want to ask you about the day-to-day life of a law enforcement officer, what kind of things you face out there, and how we can help you in that regard. And I want to dedicate our next segment here to those questions, because I know there are a lot of them, and I'd like to cover a lot of areas as quickly as we can. So I would encourage you all to stay with us as we talk to Colonel Bo Johnson and Sheriff Eugene Brantley of the Richmond County Sheriff's Office to talk about not only what all they do, but how we can assist when it comes to making Richmond County safer for all of us. On the Means Report. Welcome back to the Means Report. Sheriff Eugene Brantley and Colonel Bo Johnson, my special guest today, talking about law enforcement in Richmond County and what the Sheriff's Office is doing these days to protect and serve. Sheriff Brantley, I was struck the other night on the news when I was reading a story up there about a shooting in broad daylight. This happened on Broad Street. Are criminals getting bolder and more brazen these days to the point where they'll just shoot someone in broad daylight and not think twice about it?
Well, I think for the most part, criminals tend to do things that they feel like they can get away with.
Yeah.
And here lately in our society, I think, we don't have the same mental capacity to deal with situations emotionally. So, our emotional intelligence level has kind of, fallen off the mark from where it used to be. Whereas before we could, maybe talk about things, just kind of work things out in a different way instead of just, pulling the firearm out and shooting someone. So I think the way we look at things and view things in our society is a little different.
Where do we begin when it comes to making people not think that way and making people not reach for a gun when they want to solve a problem? Does it start with young people? Do we go into the schools and say, hey, please don't pick up a gun?
Well, I think we have to educate our kids better. I think people now don't go to school and don't look at education as really being a necessity in life.
Yeah.
And so I think because they don't view it as being a necessity, they lack the mental and emotional intelligence to make better decisions in life. And that's why we see some of the things happen in our society.
Colonel Johnson, can you go up to a young person on the streets, or can one of the deputies go up to them and say, hey, want to talk to you for a second? I know you guys might have disagreements. Please don't solve those disagreements with guns. Do they listen to you? Do they trust you?
Well, that's the thing of it. We want to make sure we gain their trust and let them understand that we're there to help them. Of course, we want the best for all our youth here in Richmond County. As the sheriff says, it really starts with education, and it starts at home and school. And if we can reach these young people while they're still in school and young, I think there's a good possibility we can get things turned around and get everything pointing in the right direction. It's all about education, just like the sheriff said.
Sheriff, what is Augusta going to look like under your administration? I drive around town and I think, okay, am I seeing more sheriff's patrol cars out there, or is that just because it's a new year and there is a new sheriff? I'm trying to notice things that let me know that there's been a change. What do you want people to see or notice when it comes to your administration?
Well, I want them to see a presence. I think, officer presence starts the first chain of people understanding that, you just can't do what you want, and there's some law here in our city. I think we've gone away from seeing officers and seeing the patrol cars as much as we used to. So as you drive around, you will notice people will run a red light, or two or three of them may run a red light while you're sitting there, and it's, the light has turned green for you to go.
Yep.
And so that's one of the things that people have now gotten used to, is not seeing those traffic cars and deputies at these intersections. And so with the new hires and the onboarding process of the 70 plus officers that we're adding, you will see more patrol cars and more of a presence out there. So hopefully that'll slow them down.
I hope so. Is there a part of town that you want to concentrate on when it comes to, cleaning it up or making there be less crime, or is it just all parts of Richmond County?
I think all parts of Richmond County can be better than what it is. I think we use data-driven analysis to kind of look at where the crimes are happening, what times they're happening, and trying to be a little more efficient and effective in how we distribute the manpower throughout the neighborhoods here in Richmond County.
Colonel, kind of take us through a traffic stop, and not only what we can do to help make a traffic stop go more smoothly if we get pulled over by a law enforcement officer, by a deputy. Well, what's it like for y'all? What goes through your mind the minute you get out of your car and start walking toward ours? Kind of take us through both sides of that.
Sure. Well, when it comes to a traffic stop, they're never routine.
No.
You never know what's going to happen.
We teach, if I don't mean to interrupt, we teach our reporters that. They'll say in their script that it was a routine traffic stop, and we'll say, there's no such thing.
Yeah, definitely not. You never know what the outcome's going to be. We always hope it's going to be a positive outcome. But, as you're being approached by a law enforcement officer, especially in the daytime, if you just make sure you're far enough off the roadway, and if you're not, they'll let you know. as they approach you, and if you could have, all your license and your insurance ready, and if there is a citation to be handed over, then it helps you get on your day, helps you get on your way much quicker. One thing I will say that when you see a traffic officer on the side of the road with a vehicle, by all means, if you could you please move to the passing lane and not in the through lane. It makes it much safer for officers. We don't want them hit. We don't want you involved in an accident, and we just all want to go home safe at the end of the day. So.
Is the officer on high alert? Is he or she anxious as they walk toward us, and so we want to make things easier for them?
Well, the stop's going to determine that, and especially if you've got prior knowledge of who you're stopping, in case it's, say, for instance, if it was a felony pullover, and or if it was just a day-to-day traffic stop, that would detail a lot of that. It would influence the officer to how he would feel that day if he's going to feel anxious. We really don't want an officer to feel anxious. We want him to be prepared for that,
right.
Kind of get through that part of it, and just be confident in what he's doing and move forward and get the job done. So,
Sheriff, I don't know that I've read too many stories on the news each night recently about gangs. Are gangs still a thing in Augusta? Are they a problem?
It's a problem in our country. It's a problem everywhere, and yes. Just because you don't hear about them don't mean they aren't out there and being busy and doing what they do. And so, yes, just always be mindful that they're present, and, just because you don't see or hear about it don't mean things aren't happening.
I want to ask both of you this question, and it has to do with the mental health of officers, because it's a stressful job. We talked about traffic stops, and there's nothing that's ever routine, it seems, with that. How important is the officer's mental well-being to you, Sheriff? And then I'll follow it up with you, Colonel. Is that something y'all focus on?
Yes, sir. It's actually very important. And so we have a deputy or two that's going to help facilitate and build a program where deputies can come in and work out and relieve some of the stress and do some of the things that would help them just kind of unwind. And for me, I've always worked out, and it always seems to help, relieve stress and just kind of get you to unwind.
Do y'all have a gym down there at the Sheriff's office?
No, we don't have a gym, but we are in the process of getting the old Southside School off Old Louisville Road.
Yeah.
And there's a gym there, and so we will be building a workout facility within that gymnasium.
What do you think about that, and what do you think your officers will think about, there being a renewed focus on their mental well-being? Is that needed when you talk to the men and women on the streets?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone wants to know that they're cared for, especially as an employee. I'm going to tell you right now, Sheriff Brantley deeply cares about his employees. He cares about the agency, and he cares about the people of Richmond County. And we're going to provide the best service for all of them. So.
Is speeding a problem? We talked about running the red lights. We talked about traffic stops. Do people speed too much in Richmond County?
Definitely. I was just speaking on yesterday to two of the guys in the upper command staff on how I was going down Gordon Highway, and two cars passed by me on the left and the right.
They passed you?
Yeah.
Unmarked vehicle? For
yes.
You? Okay,
yes,
all right.
Absolutely.
But still, Gordon Highway terrifies me.
Right. And so, yes, they do speed, and but we have a grant from the Governor's Office of Highway Safety to bring back 3 cars, and they're going to pay for the salaries of 3 of the officers there. So that's going to be part of our traffic unit, having those 3 heat cars. And so we're going to bring back Rolling Thunder and things like that to help slow down some of the speed and get some of the people who drink and drive off our roadways.
Well, you probably just answered my next question, and it was, how much cooperation or assistance do you get from the state level? Are y'all friends with the folks in Atlanta, and they're willing to help y'all if you need it?
Yeah, so, once, I attended the Georgia Sheriff's Academy up in Madison, Georgia, everyone came through. The State Patrol, just about every state agency came through and offered help, gave contact numbers, and was very helpful in saying, if you need us, here's our number, here's my direct number. call us. You know, we're here. You know, we're here for you. And so, yes, that went a long way.
Colonel Johnson, let's just kind of dispel a myth here, if it's a myth. Do y'all have a quota that you have to reach? Everyone thinks that law enforcement agencies have a quota of speeding tickets they must hand out by the end of the month.
Well, considering how many people we have speed in Richmond County, a quota wouldn't do us any good anyway. So,
Yeah.
No, there's no quota. It just, unfortunately, you know, people speed, and therefore we have to enforce traffic laws, and citations are issued. One thing with Sheriff Brantley, with Sheriff Brantley and the rest of the executive command staff, you know, he was able to bring back the traffic division, and that's going to make a huge difference in the traffic situation here in Richmond County, especially considering we had so many vehicle fatalities last year. We're gonna really try to cut that way down this year. So,
Sheriff, this is the time of year when we are doing our annual count of the homeless population. Do y'all get a lot of calls when it comes to homeless, and what sort of can the sheriff's office do there, if anything, or is that more of a marshal's responsibility?
Well, we do get a lot of calls, and I've actually assembled what's called the HOT team, which is a homeless outreach team, and it consists of officers and social workers and people to help get the homeless people some help if they need help, get them off the street, help them find homes and things of that nature.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I know that the homeless folks, you know, appreciate a chance to maybe get a better lease on life. Probably time for one more question, and I'll just hit both of y'all with this one. And it's, what can we do to help you? What can the community do, Sheriff, to help make your job easier and make us safer?
Just be patient. And if you see something, say something. You know, I campaigned on being accessible, being active in the community, and being approachable. And hopefully we can foster those relationships back within the community where people will feel safer and be at ease when they're talking to deputies, and don't mind coming forward and giving us some pertinent information that would help us solve a lot of the things that happen in our neighborhoods.
How about you? Any way that we can help you or your officers when they do their job?
oh, absolutely. You know, law enforcement isn't just the job of law enforcement itself, as far as police officers and everything. It's everyone's job. It's everyone's duty. We depend on our citizens to let us know what's going on. A lot of our information comes from the citizens, and we depend on them and everyone in this community to make it better. So.
Well, I appreciate y'all's time. I appreciate your answers. I learned a ton. I know our viewers did too. Sheriff Brantley and Colonel Johnson, thanks for keeping us safe and working so hard.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having us.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate it. And I know you all enjoyed our guests today. When we come back, how you can help us get more great guests like the Sheriff and the Colonel on the Means Report.